Have you ever just looked around and felt like everyone is just out for themselves? In business, in politics, it feels like everybody's just looking for their own angle. Well, today, we're going to dive deep into why one society, in particular, feels like it's completely lost its way and become totally consumed by self-interest. So, yeah, how does that even happen? How does an entire nation, one that was famous for its incredible collective spirit, get to a point where it seems like every single person in every organization is just fighting for their own little piece of the pie? That's the huge question we're going to try and unpack today. Okay, so to really get this, we have to understand this one key Korean metaphor that frames the entire conversation. It's brilliant. On one side, you have Yeonbu. Think of this as the main event, the shared mission, the collective duty that everyone is working towards together. But on the other side, you have Jaetbap, which are literally the side offerings. This has come to mean all those personal, selfish interests that pull our attention away from the main goal. Yeonbu versus Jaetbap. You're going to want to keep these two ideas in your back pocket as we go. Right, so to figure out where things went off the rails, we actually have to go back to a time when things were going really, really well. There was a time when the focus wasn't on individual gain at all. It was all about the Yeonbul, that shared national goal. Think back to the early decades, right after the nation's founding. The focus was absolutely not on Jaetbap. No way. There was this incredibly powerful shared purpose to build the country literally from the ground up. The entire nation rallied behind its leaders in business, religion, you name it. People just put their trust in those at the top and poured all their energy into this huge collective effort. And you know what? The formula worked. It was incredibly effective. Leaders laid out a vision, and the people, they gave their complete trust and their unified support. This unity, this intense focus on the national Yeonbul over any individual Jaetbap, it led to that almost miraculous economic growth that South Korea became famous for. It was like a social contract, and everyone was holding up their end of the bargain. But here's the thing about a social contract like that. It's fragile. It runs on trust. And a moment came, a really critical turning point, when that trust just began to completely fall apart. And this is exactly where the breakdown happened. The expectation, the big promise, was that the unbelievable wealth created by everyone's backbreaking work would be shared fairly. But the reality? Well, it was a totally different story. When people saw that the rewards weren't actually flowing back to them, the entire calculation changed. It was like, okay, if the collective reward isn't coming, then I better start fighting to secure my own. The great hunt for Jaetbap had officially begun. So, and this is a really important point, this wasn't just some natural drift into selfishness. This was seen as a massive failure of leadership. The people had done their part, but the leaders, they got lost in their own world, their own logic, and they just failed to take care of the very people who had put so much faith in them. And that created this deep, deep sense of betrayal that just rippled through the whole society. But it wasn't just the political and business leaders who dropped the ball. Oh no, there was another really critical group that completely lost its way, the intellectuals. The thinkers, the academics, the very people who were supposed to be the moral compass for the nation. I mean, their role, their Yeonbul, was supposed to be crystal clear. Society pays for them to get this incredible knowledge, and in return, they're meant to be a bridge. They're supposed to guide leaders on how to use all this new economic power for the public good and to research a better future for every single person. That was the deal. But instead of being that vital bridge, they just walked away from the job. They basically decided, hey, I don't want to just advise the powerful people. I want to be the powerful people. They started chasing their own Jaetbap, trying to become the heads of these big organizations and build their own little empires. And the result of all these different fractures, it was absolutely devastating. Society just shattered into all these competing groups. You've got corporate cartels, political factions, religious organizations, academic circles, and each one became fiercely loyal only to its own members, with absolutely no one left looking out for the country as a whole. And this isn't just an abstract theory. The human cost of this breakdown is just staggering. For more than 10 years, South Korea has had the highest suicide rate among all developed nations. That's not just a number. It is a heartbreaking symptom of a society where people feel completely lost, alone, and just crushed by the overwhelming pressure of having to fight for themselves every single day. So, with a problem that runs this deep, where do you even begin to look for a solution?
Well, the source material we're looking at today argues that the only way out starts with a really fundamental shift in how we think about what it means to be truly educated.
Take a look at this table. It kind of lays out a new way of thinking, an evolution of purpose. You might start out as a merchant, totally focused on making money for yourself. Then maybe you evolve into an industrialist, focused on growing your company. But the highest form, the real goal here, is to become a public benefactor, someone who uses their power and resources not for themselves, but for the good of all humanity. And this brings us right to the core of the argument. There is a huge difference between just having knowledge and having a true education. See, knowledge is just collecting facts and theories. It's technical skill. But true education, that's about character. It's about building a sense of mission, a purpose, to serve something much bigger than just yourself. And this line just says it all, doesn't it? The country has become fantastic at producing people with tons of knowledge. Experts, specialists, brilliant technicians. But it has failed to create truly educated citizens who feel that deep sense of shared responsibility and collective purpose. But here's the wild part. This isn't some new, radical idea. It's actually a return to one of the country's founding ideals. This mission, to contribute to the prosperity of all humanity, this was literally taught to every single kid in school in South Korea. It was this unique, powerful part of the national identity that has just been completely forgotten. And that leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question. In a world that is constantly screaming at us to focus on our own job, our own personal gains, is it even possible for a society to rediscover its Yeonbol? Can we remember that shared mission to build a better world, not just for ourselves, but for absolutely everyone?